Alright, so that last video got a little bit cut off. Let's finish up this problem down here. So now what I'm going to do is I need to find my x when y is 20. So I'm going back to y equals. I've already typed this in. So y1 and y2. Just a reminder, this is what my window is set at. It's just what it was set at before at the top. And I'm going to hit graph. They are there. Yours are graphing, but now I can go back to second trace. I can choose intersect again and just scroll over to the left and hit enter 3 times. And if you notice, it's again twice, so I will write down 2 answers. And I'm going to write this as we're going to the nearest hundredths. Next video we'll go to the tenths. So 0.42 with 20. And then I'll go ahead and find the other one. I wasn't thinking about 2 answers when I made this, so I'll go back to my graph. I'll choose second trace. I'm going to choose intersect again. So option 5, I'm just going to move the cursor over to the other point of intersection, and once I'm there, hit enter 3 times and round to the nearest hundredths. So we'll have 9.58 and 20. Alright, the words at the bottom are a little bit new for us, so domain. So we wrote in our notes just the other day that domain, you need to be looking for the smallest x and the biggest x. That makes sense if we're in context, you know, there's a story behind it. And our y, we want to pick the smallest y and the biggest y. And this symbol just means between, whether it's going to be x or y. So what I want to do first is look at my smallest x and my biggest x. So if you look at everything we've written down, we wrote the arrows and all these points, and I just start comparing all my x's, the smallest x we ever wrote was negative infinity. And then when I look, the biggest x that I ever wrote was infinity. So that's going to be my domain. So I'm going to put x with my between symbols, and the smallest x we wrote was negative infinity, and the biggest x we wrote was infinity. Now I'm going to do my range, and this represents y. So I want to look for the smallest y and the biggest y. So the smallest y is going to be down here at your minimum. So the smallest y I wrote was -1, whereas I go up, I'll find the biggest y, and that was infinity, whether you look here or you look here. So I'll put -1 to infinity. And if there is a number, you need to underline it because this includes -1. So -1 was part of our graph. The lowest range or amount for y was -1, so I put a underline there, and it goes to infinity. I don't underline for infinity because infinity means when I underline it means I can actually get to infinity, and you can't get to infinity because it never ends. So with infinities, we do not underline. All right, let's go to the next one. So in your calculator, slightly different format, just so you know, this is called vertex form. So I'm going to clear out any equations that I have. And I'm going to put 2, my parentheses, x minus, don't hit -4. The squared button is right here. And then -15. And let's start with zoom 6, and then we'll adjust our window if we need to adjust our window. So remember, I want to see the x-intercepts, the y-intercepts, and the vertex. So I can't see the vertex right now. And with some problems coming up, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to adjust our window. I need to go a little bit lower, so I want to change my y-min to, let's make it -25. But for problems later down the road, I want to set our y-max all the way up to 30. Whoops, sorry about that. So let's hit graph, make sure that works. So we'll write our window down in just a moment. Alright, so I can see my x-intercepts, my y-intercept, my vertex. I've got those important points. So let's draw our picture. Let's put our window down first. So if you don't remember what it was, y equals, my x went from -10 to 10. Oh, you can't see that. And my y went from -25 up to 30. Alright, I'm going to draw my shape in. So the graph. Sorry, I keep hitting the phone. So about like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. And something like this. All right, we're going to get all our important points marked on our graph, and then a lot of those answers will fall into answers on the worksheet. So I'm going to start with the arrows. Again, the arrows are important. Always on the left arrow, x is negative infinity. That will never change. And always on the right arrow, x is infinity. That will never change. What will change are what the y's are doing. So since this is going up, and the arrow means it's never going to end, I'll put infinity. And this arrow is also going up, and it will never end, which means it's infinity. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. My y-intercept, let's start with the vertex down here. So again, I need to go to second trace. That is a minimum, so I'm going to choose option 3. I'm just pushing 3. I'm going to move my cursor to where I think it starts. I'm going to then move left, hit enter. Then I'm going to move to the right of it, and I'm going to hit enter. And then enter for guess. And this time, let's round to the nearest, let's go to the nearest tenths on this worksheet. So 4 and negative 15. Now, if your answer pops up different, the only thing, you know, if we round, we should still be okay. All right, let's go find our x-intercepts, also known as the zeros on our calculator. So I'm going to press second trace. I'm going to choose option 2. Let's move over to one of them. So this is where I think it is, and I'm going to go left, hit enter, go back to where I think it is, hit right, enter, enter for guess, and I'm going to round that to 1.3. So again, this time I want to do the tenths, 1.3 with 0. So just a reminder, if you do see E on your calculator down here, that meant 0. So let's get the other one, second trace, choose 0. Again, I'm going to scroll over so I get to that point of intersection. I think that's where it is, so now I'm going to hit left arrow for left bound, hit enter. I'm going to go back to where I think it is. Now I'm going to go to the right and hit enter, and then enter for guess. And let's make that 6.7. All right, the only other one that I need to find is the y-intercept. So again, a y-intercept is when y is the number and x is 0. So there's two ways we can do this. We can do second trace and go to value, or we can go to our table and find where x is 0. And since I'm here, I'll just use that option. It's going to be 0, 17. And now I'm going to go through and start answering all the questions. So we already put the window in. The axis of symmetry, remember that's the line that goes right through. And the axis of symmetry is always an equation of x equals. So we're going to choose the x value of our vertex. So x equals 4. Now I'm going to come over here and put in my vertex. So I have 4 and negative 15. And when I choose numbers